Phil Bennett, longtime college football coach and a great friend of the show, was in Lubbock over the weekend. And thanks for the time, Coach, with Paul and Craig and me. I don't think that's what you expected to see when you went to that game on Saturday.
You know, Joe and I were talking before the game, and one of the things he mentioned, he said, you know, Phil, anybody can beat anybody, which I said after 50 years involved in, I said, you're absolutely right. And he said, I told our guys, they were aware, and he was concerned, you know, the great crowd, and he was concerned about, you know, them playing ACU, you know, a 1AA team. And I tell you something, they did, this is crazy. Reverse portal action. A wide receiver, a running back, a quarterback, a tight end, were all at Tech and left. And they all played very well against Tech. They were kids that left their program, and one of them had gone to North Texas, then at ACU. And you'll remember McIvor's dad, who I happened to see.
Yep.
Yeah, I happened to see him pre-game. Unfortunately, he just had a stroke, and he's coming back from it. But his son really played well. It was, and you know, there were some plays. Some people say, well, it's fluke. Some of their guys really played well and caught the ball, and you know, Tech had some good coverage, and they still made plays. So I still think you'll see Tech go to Washington State, and they'll play better.
I want to ask you a question about how it ended. I know if you're like the underdog, there's a time when you say, what the hell, let's go for the throat, especially if you're getting worn down. But was that the time to go for two, in your opinion?
Yeah. They, you know, Keith, you know, unfortunately, I talked to him after they were in that car wreck. I mean, bus wreck. But, you know, he said they were worn out. And he said defensively, Tech had scored so fast, you know, on the first overtime. He said, you know, and then we got in this deal. He said, I felt like, you know, if we score, we've got to try to end it. Now, he had told me the play somehow, I don't know, you know how they're working with the new headset too. Somehow the play sort of got screwed up. Quarterback or one of the receivers didn't get it. It was supposed to be a pass. It looked like a quarterback draw. It was 4-by-1 empty, and it just didn't get executed, which was a shame. I mean, I think the kid threw for 518 yards.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he had himself.
I hate the fact that might have got screwed up, man. What a bummer there. What did you think of the new setup out in Lubbock, Coach? As far as like they did the big end zone project, and really it's been a big deal.
You know, I was down on the field pregame, very, very impressive. Taylor Young, obviously, and Brian Dance. You know, we had a lot of people that it's crazy. Harrison Hanna, who was my manager at Baylor, that Joey has a great group out there. Kenny Perry took me around. It is second to none. They had a heck of a crowd, sold out crowd, great atmosphere, and you know, you could tell that a lot of them were talking about, we want to get to the next game, and I think it's just a learning lesson for them. You know, I think they're better. They're a much better defense than they played Saturday, and I think you'll see that as it come on. But they're set up, and what I saw Kirby Holcutt out there, who I've known forever from K-State, and I told him they should be very proud. You know, it really looks good. It looks like a big-time program.
By the way, Maverick McIvor's dad, Rick, played at Texas in 79 through 83 and was a starting quarterback for them, and also was drafted, in fact, that year, just in case.
Played in St. Louis.
Yeah, absolutely.
He told me, this is crazy, and I got to look this up. I'm sure he's right. He said out of his year, I went to Fort Stock, my first year coaching. I went out there. Because I was the youngest guy on the A&M staff, I went and saw him play in high school. And obviously, he told me, he said, I'll never forget, he told me, he said, if I can go to Texas, that's where I'm going. And obviously, Fred Akers offered him, and they had a great career. But he told me in his signing class, they had 19 guys drafted. That's crazy.
Yeah, that sounds
I knew
like
they were good.
That's a lot. No, they used to, man. That was back when they had a bunch going into the NFL. Georgia, of course, I don't know what the record is, but they've –
Is there more rounds too?
Yeah. Well, there were many more rounds, like 13 or 14 rounds back then.
Yeah, that was more rounds. Yeah.
Yep.
Phil, when you I watched Joe McGuire the other night. I mean, he's usually high energy, like bouncing back and forth on the sidelines. The fourth quarter of that game, he was obviously as tense as he's ever going to be. When you are about to get upset by a team that, you know, should not be in that position as a coach, is it tighter than when you're getting beaten by a team that's in your conference?
Absolutely. You know, that was a game, and Joey knew. Listen, Joey knew what they were faced with, and the thing you can never take out of it is you're still dealing with 18 to 22-year-old kids. That they read the papers, they look at the who's favored, who's not, the mindset. Where I tell you what, you got to give, and Joey's very smart. They had a new coordinator. The Valdosta coordinator went to ACU, really did a good. McIvor's gotten better. They had good transfers, and Joey knew that it could potentially could be a tough game. But yeah, it's tougher because we can say what we want to, Paul, but perception in football is the fans. I was trying to tell people around there the last day. I said, I played golf yesterday at Lubbock Country Club. I said, it's one game. I think they'll be learn from it and grow. And that's what you do. Joey is very aware of what they were getting into in that game, and I think he'll get them better.
All right, Phil Bennett with us on 365 Sports. So Baylor, the guys that they brought in, the NIL, the transfers, Finn scored, threw for a couple of touchdowns. A wide receiver, Texas State scored. The tight end, Ole Miss scored, and then the linebacker, the JUCO transfer, had a pick six. Now it's Tarleton State, and they were on their second or third quarterback, but in a position where, hey, Tarleton State has moved up. They took care of business. Now they got a hell of a test at Utah, but just getting the win and showing some explosive plays. Your thoughts?
Absolutely. I watched. I was keeping it on the phone. The only thing that I didn't like was I'm not sure how well we ran the ball compared to them. They had a running back that averaged 5.5 yards a carry. Utah will be better on the line. I don't think they were ever really challenged, defensively. And it will, Rising will challenge them more. You would wish that they would have had a little, hopefully that they'll go out and play at that level against Utah, but it's going to be a lot different atmosphere, a lot different game. But yeah, I thought they took care of business. Everybody that got in seemed to make plays. The only thing I didn't like is the 5.2. I think the kid had 68 yards in 11 or 12 carries. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, he ran hard. He was good.
Yeah. And I didn't like the two turnovers. The two picks in a big game, as we saw A&M versus Notre Dame. The two picks were the difference makers.
Phil, when you look at A&M and their offense now, this is against, these are two defensive, minded coaches, two of the best defensive minded coaches that are going right now. That game went about how you would expect. Offensively, what's your level of concern for Connor Wigman and the Aggies moving forward with Colin Klein?
Well, I think everybody at A&M, Connor has been anointed. Everybody at A&M have seen he played a good game 1 year against LSU, played fairly well against Miami last year, but Connor has never consistently been a producer. I looked at that game and I saw one quarterback just have a field presence like nobody, and then Connor sort of I don't see a field presence, and he felt like he was lost. I'm not totally surprised by that. He didn't have the running game that would have helped him. His 2 picks, one of them was just a throwaway that really, ended up hurting him. And I think Colin will realize what he can do, what he can't do. I think the other thing that you've got to realize with A&M's offense is, man, I had no idea that Notre Dame would come out. I think they played man coverage every snap. And I'm not sure A&M was ready for that. And there were not seams. There were no plays to be made in the passing game. And then, A&M really didn't run the ball very well. Then defensively, their front played okay, but, Notre Dame played really, Notre Dame, I think, rushed for 65 yards first half, ended the game with almost 200 yards rushing, which if you're rushing for 200 yards, you're going to win. A&M had 2 interceptions. Notre Dame had none. So A&M did not have a sack the whole night. And I know they have a good front, but Notre Dame's young offensive line really did a good job.
Coach, were you able to get eyes on the game last night? A nice way to end the weekend. I know there's another game tonight, but LSU and USC, there's been so much made about, Lincoln Riley running away from the SEC and this and that, but what a win for him and the Trojans.
I really thought that their quarterback, those 2 quarterbacks, both Nunsmeyer and the kid at USC, they looked like the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought both teams were really well coached on both sides of the ball. What a huge drive with USC on that last drive. And that young kid, now think about this. I think he might be the only quarterback in America that's been out of school 3 years and never been a starter that's still playing. You don't hear of that. Everybody's transferred.
Yeah.
And he, I remember Josh Henson's a good friend of mine. We worked at Arizona State together, and I saw him at a Crawfish Bowl. His daughter's still in town here. And we were talking. I said, well, I guess the guy from UNLV is going to be your quarterback. He said, Phil, I don't think he is. He said, there's something special about the kid that played against Louisville. And last night we saw it. He was so calm. He was in command, and Nunsmeyer was the same thing. Both defensive, who they were both terrible a year ago, are on their way to being fixed. Neither one of them are quite there yet, but I really enjoyed that game. It was a very well played game.
I
guess Lincoln was pretty. He probably sent Joe Castiglione a message. You know what? You guys beat LSU and didn't talk to me.
Yeah, I was happy for him because, and at the same time, at times he can be difficult, but that had to be a nice relief for them to win in against an SEC team. Paul?
Absolutely.
Phil, if Dabo Swinney called you right now and said, what should I do to fix my issues? Would you say get in the portal? Would you say adjust what you're doing? I'm curious from your perspective because he's the only one standing on the hill anymore.
I really believe in that game. His quarterback did not play well. He had some plays to be made, and he overthrew. If they could have scored early, I know the score looks like a wipeout, but it wasn't. It was a great defensive game for a long time. I thought his defense played good until certain things. And I tell you, I thought Mike Bobo did a really good job at Georgia when he saw what he was going against. And I don't know if you remember the plays, but they run in these little naked boots with a cross back coming to a cross field. And they really, second half got after Clemson. I think that everybody's after Dabo because he wants people to know that, we're not just going to get in this deal because everybody else is. Obviously, you look at the portal, there are guys who can help your program. I think that without question, he'll reevaluate that. But I don't believe that's the only reason that they lost. They have a good team. We're going to find out that Georgia, if Beck plays the way he plays and their defense continues to play well, they're going to they're going to be one of those teams. They're going to beat a lot of people like that.
I think you're right. Somebody on the chat room asked about, can you try to, even though it was in the end shaky, how would you describe the atmosphere inside Jones AT&T Stadium?
You know, it was good. I thought the fans were into it. They have new lighting, and I think it was very close to being totally packed. They stayed involved in the game, and you could tell that you know, a couple of things happened for ACU, which like I said, I worked with Keith Patterson. I've known him since he came out of college. He's a great coach, and that staff did a great job. They had them ready to play, and but let's not forget, Joey's guys found a way to win. And you know what? A lot of people can't say that. You know, when Appalachian State beat A&M couldn't find a way to win. And Tech found a way to win. And that's the bottom line.
You mentioned a crawfish boil earlier. What is your favorite part of the crawfish boil?
Probably the Miller Lite after eating a couple of those hot crawfish. You know, somebody asked, my wife asked me one time, she said, do you think you could ever drink Diet Coke with crawfish? I said, hell no.
No.
What are you doing? If you're even, my wife will not eat crawfish. She won't get anywhere near it. But her friends have a crawfish bowl we go to most every year. And the first time that she was watching us all eat, she's like, why don't you use a fork for the potatoes? I'm like, why get a fork involved at this point?
Yeah.
Like, I would just need it for that. Everything else is my hands. I'll just grab a potato and eat it.
You know, every year we were at Baylor, Bo Trahan would have his crawfish boil. Let me tell you something. It was a competition. Of course, I was at LSU for 5 years. I grew up near Shreveport. And my kids, they were little when we were there, so they know how to eat them like nobody's business and eat them fast. And people will look at my kids going, God, where'd they learn that? I mean, that's one of the things you have to learn in Louisiana is, you know, snap the tail, push the tail up, eat it, and get another one.
Yep. And it did. And my only concern about that is that, like, I love the shrimp in a crawfish bowl, even though it's a crawfish bowl. But
oh yeah, it's filled. Yeah.
You mentioned the potatoes. I love the like red potatoes, whatever. No matter what it is.
Yeah, little red potato.
The corn and all that stuff. And so now we have Texas and Michigan. I saw just a little bit of Michigan, Fresno State. Probably a pretty good year. Texas is still very, very loaded, and Michigan maybe is down more than a notch. It looks like they're going to struggle a little bit on offense, and they have the quarterback transition. Your thoughts about Texas up at the Big House against the Wolverines?
I think they will dominate Michigan. I think that, you know, Fresno wasn't able to do it. Wink Martindale doesn't have a history of college offenses. I think he's going to have trouble. I watched, you know, that was a closer game than people realize. It was close for a long time. And I think Michigan is new quarterback, and I think defensively that Texas is good enough to expose them some. You know, I think that Sark will see some things that Michigan did that he could take advantage of that Fresno couldn't.
How many text messages from former coaches or even some that are still coaching do you have throughout a weekend?
Oh my God. We drove back from Lubbock today, and my wife, I said, you're going to have to drive. I've got to answer these texts. It's crazy. You know, when you've done something so long, you're connected to so many people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the other night they were asking me, who do you want to win? You got, you know, Jared Holley, who was an All-American for me at Pitt and coached with me at Arizona State and North Texas, is at ACU. Keith was with us at ACU. All my friends at Tech, I said, you know, I want the best team to win. I want to watch both of them. And I thought that Tech, you know, like I said, I'm going to say this again, they found a way to win. And Keith and them will take that game and grow. I have a lot of people that I talk to, and you know what I try to do. I just try to keep especially the young coaches. I try to keep them, up and at it. Because, nowadays, we talked about this, Smokey. I mean, everybody's a coach. Everybody's a critic. I was proud. I thought A&M, the atmosphere when they played, it was outstanding. Now, everybody's saying, well, what's wrong with Wigman? What's wrong with Colin Klein? It's one game, and it could have been the difference of one or two plays throughout the game. So, I talked to quite a few of them, and it's something I don't try to be too judgmental, but I do try to be honest.
What are your thoughts on Colorado going to Nebraska this week?
I think that Matt is building something there. I thought that I think Colorado could be in trouble. I say this again. They hired a guy, not that he's a bad coach, but he hasn't really coached in college. He's been with the Cincinnati Bengals, and it was obvious when I sat there and watched North Dakota State pretty much score at will. At the end, get back in the game, score. It became a score fest. I think at home, Matt's young quarterback. I think they're better. I think they have a better grip on what they want to be, and they're pretty dang good. They will challenge them on defense much more than North Dakota State did. And I think it could be a big day for the Cornhuskers.
Well, they had the freshman quarterback who I thought looked pretty poised. I don't know if they can run the ball much, even though they ran for a lot of yards. I still don't know if they have a dynamic running back. So it'll be interesting. And they just need a nice win. They just need
Well, and you know what? They need something at home to get those fans excited. I told people this. When Frank Solis was there, I was at Kansas State, and you go into Lincoln, Nebraska. I mean, I've been in Lincoln, I've been in Tiger Stadium, I've been in Georgia, Tennessee, and Florida, A&M. I mean, all those places. None were any better than Nebraska. And I'm talking about, I mean, they're great fans, and they are loud and they're proud.
I know this is all so ancient history at this point, but Nebraska was a program really like no other, just the consistency they had. Do you remember your reaction when they fired Frank Solich?
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's be honest. Never been the same.
Yeah.
Ever. The guy, Billy Callahan had it for just a little bit. And you know what? Coach Osborne did everything he could to keep that from happening. And it's just been now I do believe, I think I watched Matt the other night on that Fox special. Did you guys see that when he was talking about the old quarterback from Colorado? I can't, the one that's on Fox.
Joe Klatt.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, he's got a plan. And I hope they can get the guys. I got some good friends on that staff, and I think they're great coaches. I've always liked Joey, and he's got a plan, and I'd like to see him get it going.
Phil, thank you very much, man. It's great to have you on. You get some rest after that long trip, and
hey, I'm looking forward to another good week of football. It's a great time of the year.
Cannot wait. Phil Bennett with us.